Hello folks, I thought you might like to join me for a quick cup of tea in my winter mug and a chat about how the winter spine went. I thought I'd do a little bit of a brain dump whilst things are still fairly fresh in my mind. It was about 5 days ago I think that I finished, so yeah, let's talk spine. So first things first, obviously I finished the race. Well, hey, second time in a row. I'm pretty pleased about that. I mean, it's a very tough race, more than 50% DNF rate year on year, so to have 2 consecutive finishes, I'm pretty pleased. What happens when you finish? You get a few things. You get a cool t-shirt. Hey. You get a pretty neat finisher certificate. So it shows the route starting down here at Edale, work its way up to the finish at Kirkyeton. You get your name on there, the year you ran it, so yeah, nice little thing. And you get, of course, the Spine Finishers Medal. I'll try and give you a close up of that. It's a pretty chunky metal medal, that, so there you go. Not bad. You also get a little patch you can sew onto your gear, so lots of goodies. Right, how did it go? So those of you who read my blog post from last year, you'll probably be aware 2024 was a freezing cold year. The whole course was covered in ice. It was, from my perspective, horrendous conditions, but it was quite a fast year because the ground was all rock hard. This year it was pretty different, and you could break it down into 2 halves. So the first half was snow, like snow everywhere, deep snow up to your knees, up to your waist. We had it much easier on the full spine. So a day before us, the Challenger South race set off along the same route, and those poor folks had to carve a path through this waist-deep snow. So by the time our race came around, there was a path of compressed snow for us to move through. In places that was really good, awesome running conditions, and in places it's still a heck of a lot of work. You've got footprints that are half a meter deep into the snow, and things are melting a bit, and then you've got a gap like half a meter beneath that down to the water course, and just because Challenger South had been through first, it wasn't easy, right? But it was easier. It was a lot easier than they had it. So yeah, first half snow. Second half, the course was getting warmer. The snow was melting. Some of it was like melting and then refreezing, so you're getting a layer of ice. Some of the melt was contributing to the mud. We've just coming out of cross country season, so we know all about that right now from down south. A lot of it was just contributing to the bogs, and the second half of the course is predominantly bog anyway, so it was a pretty boggy year. And both of those, running on snow and running through mud and bog, is all really effortful. So I guess that's how I'd kind of summarize the overall thing. A pretty effortful run, a pretty slow run. And I think it's true for most people that it was a slow year for, their times were slower than last year, and that was certainly the case for me. Last year I ran 120 hours. This year I ran 134, so a good half a day longer than 2024. How do I feel about that? I mean, sure, I would rather have gotten a little bit closer to my time from last year, but no, I'm quite happy with that. As I've said, 2 consecutive finishes of the spine. I can't really ask for more. And those who've read the the most recent little blog post I put out will have gleaned that I was struggling a little bit through the race this year with a purpose, with a reason to finish. If I compare back to last year, I had a clear reason to finish the race. It was the first time I was running it, and a race of that difficulty, you just want to finish it so you don't have to come back and run it again, right? That's the overarching thing. So I had a strong reason to finish it last year, and I had reasons to finish it quickly because, to be completely honest, there were times I found it a little bit scary. It was so incredibly cold for me. You're out in really remote locations, surrounded by ice, really treacherous, descents in these freezing conditions. Some of the kit was new to me, like the spikes, for example, and didn't properly fit. I just wanted to get, on multiple occasions, I just wanted to get to the next checkpoint as expeditiously as possible and onwards to the finish at Kirkgjedon. So I had reasons last year to finish and to finish quickly. Whereas this year, I'd already done it, right? So I'd given myself a tenuous reason to finish, to get to the end within the final cutoff. I had given myself no reason whatsoever to finish within any time shorter than that. I'd given myself no reason to get a move on, get to the next checkpoint more quickly than that the back marker, frankly. Now, in my blog post, I talk a little bit about the not knowing the reason for coming back and running the spine again, and that I sort of discovered the reason why I'd re-entered over the course of the race, and I discovered that really by observing what I was doing, what I was prioritizing, and what I was prioritizing was discovery and reflection, and putting the pieces together from the previous year. So I was really soaking up the environment. I was doing little videos. I was making mental notes of what had happened at each location in the previous year. I was going to the rest stops that I didn't stop at the first time. I was really taking in the checkpoints. I was using the showers. I was talking to volunteers. I was talking to other participants. I was talking to members of the public. I was in no rush. So that all contributed to my overall time. And I can go through and say, my diversion to Keld and my time there, that was half an hour. A shower there, that was half an hour, and so on and so forth, and it all adds up, right? So I'm happy with what I did, and I feel I got out of it probably what I needed to get out of it. So all in all, it wasn't a tip-top performance, but yeah, I'm happy. So let's talk about a few bits of let's talk about kit, right? Everyone loves talking about kit. So I made quite a few changes this year. For shoes, I ran in a mix of La Sportiva Cyclones, like I did last year, and Hoka Mafats, and I effectively rotated between those two. Worked really well. The Cyclones were great for heavy snow, and the Mafats handled the bog sections pretty well. I had a pair of mud talons with me as well, and I probably should have used those between Alston and Bellingham. Would have given me just a bit more grip in that mud, but no, it was neither here nor there. Something I was so proud of this year, I took the Montane Gecko 20 litre pack again, and I love that pack, but it's definitely got some aspects that could be improved. So this year I sought to make those improvements, right? And I got my thread and Velcro and buckles and strapping out, and I fashioned some improvements to my pack. Some of them I even made the night before in the company of Stephen Bennett, who was a little bit skeptical, I have to say, my sewing skills, but I was pleased with the result at the time. And I have been I've spent an hour sewing some Velcro on my pack.
This was after the waterproofing incident.
Well, no, I started before. I mean, I think it's a pretty high quality result, don't you? I mean,
it's definitely...
It's attached, isn't it? It's attached to the pack.
On the Montane pack that is now soon to be known as the Montane Spine Pack.
The Montane Spine Pack, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Some of them held to the end, right? Some of them did hold. I had a Velcro strap on the side that was still on and working at the end, and some of them didn't. I mean, my pièce de résistance, my chunky top strap, that lasted all of about 40 kilometers. I think that was a real shame when that fell apart. But listen, I'm you know by now I'm not a great sewer. In fact, it's a miracle I can connect anything together with thread and a needle. So it was a decent effort, I think, and next time I will look to get somebody slightly more proficient to make my pack modifications. I think that's fair to say. Technology. That was a debacle this year, and I don't know what it was. So I brought a GoPro. I intended to take lots of videos to sort of really give you a sense of the route, especially in some of the more difficult places where you don't want to get your phone out and drop that or lose that, but I feel comfortable getting the GoPro out. It literally lasted for about 30 seconds before the first battery died on me, and the second battery I was carrying couldn't even power the device up. So it was probably the cold, but other devices I have with lithium-ion batteries survived, so I don't quite understand why the GoPro batteries didn't. But anyway, I basically deposited the GoPro in my drop bag at CP1 and forgot all about it. So that didn't work. Tell you something else that didn't work. My Garmin watches. Same two Garmin watches I'd used for the previous year, and I don't know what it was. I honestly don't know what it was. I had loaded higher resolution GPX routes onto both of them. I honestly don't really see why that would have caused the behaviour that I experienced, but maybe it did contributed to it. I don't know. The better of the two was the watch I usually use, my Forerunner 955 Solar, and that did work for the most part. It hard crashed, froze at one point, and I had to do a full reboot of it. When it restarted the activity, it seemed to be working, but I then discovered that the rest feature didn't work. So I have a suspicion that when it auto restarted the activity, it restarted it in normal run mode instead of ultra run mode, which gives you that rest function. I don't know, but that was quite unfortunate because I was using that rest functionality to time my aid station stops, my checkpoint stops. So yeah, that was a real shame. And my other watch, my Enduro 2, I only bring this out for races like this. It's literally what it's designed for, and I don't know. It was. I haven't got words to describe how poor it was this year. It was okay for about the first day, and then it just started crashing. it would crash sometimes when I pressed a button, but most of the time it would just crash whenever it felt like it. I would guess it was crashing an average of once an hour, or maybe more frequently, once a half hour. It took 2 to 3 minutes to automatically reboot every time, during which you've got no maps, no nothing. And to its credit, it would then drop you at the sort of resume activity screen, and a few button presses later you're back to your map. But that wasn't good. That really wasn't good. I mean, at one point I was so frustrated I actually stopped and made a video on all the Garmin issues I was having, edited it down, and I think I spent about half hour making this video, which I didn't post in the end. But it's not what you want to be doing during a race, really. So yeah, Garmin let me down this race big time. So sleep. Now this was an interesting one. As I mentioned earlier, I wasn't really in a great rush at this race, so like last time I slept at checkpoints 2, 3 and 4. But I also took some trail naps for the first time, and that I found really interesting, because they were really effective. And I'm talking about just a couple of minutes here, or like I think 9 minutes behind a can was the longest one I took, and it really worked. It kick-started my body into and got rid of that oppressive sleep deprivation and stumbling and shutting your eyes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's kind of amazing what how effective those little breaks were. And it was quite fun as well. You're just trying to find little bits of protection from the wind on a really exposed fell, just so you can grab a few minutes shut eye. Yeah, weird but effective. Okay, so will I run the Montane Winter Spine again? The answer, will I run it next year? No, I won't. The long and short of it is, it takes an immense amount of time and effort and frankly money as well to prepare for this race. It's basically 6 months of prep, and with everything else that goes on around it, it's almost your entire year that is devoted to running this race. I've done it 2 years in a row. I'm not doing it for a third year in a row as well. I have to do some other things in my life other than the Winter Spine. That said, I have learnt a lot more about the race now, and I've got quite a lot of data, such that I think I could probably put together a strategy to run it, and to have a decent stab at it. And part of me would like to do that at some point, not next year. So yeah, that's in the back of my mind. I can see myself returning at some point in the future. Probably more near-term horizon, I could see myself doing the Summer Spine, because that is definitely going to be more suited to me and my skill set, my abilities. I don't do well in the cold. My respiratory system doesn't do well in the cold. I'm not experienced on the sort of ground conditions that you get in the cold. So yeah, I would fare much better, I think, in the Summer Spine, and I'm sure I would enjoy that a lot more as well. So I don't think I'm going to do that this year. I need a break from spiny things for at least 12 months, I think. So not this year, but I will be doing more spine related races in future. I think the community is fantastic. I think the race is operated really well, and I think the route is really challenging. It's a really interesting puzzle to try to solve. So yeah, I'll be back to spine racing at some juncture. I think for the rest of this year, I'll be focusing on shorter stuff, more local races, things I'm probably naturally a little bit better at. I feel I could probably use a, breaking the odd personal PB or so. So yeah, that'll be the focus for this year, I think. I'll be, of course, penning my full spine blog post, so that will go into the detail of the race, and I think the focus will probably be on the mental side of it, on the why, on the strategy, on the tactics, and the aftermath, the sort of holistic picture which I glossed over last time. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a more rounded, more interesting blog post than the sort of war and peace blow by blow that last time was. So yeah, I guess just thank you everyone for the support, the really quite incredible support that you showed me yet again during the race. Like, just having those messages coming in the background, it just gives you that extra little bit of reason to finish and reason to get a move on, which, as you can tell, I was kind of lacking a bit this year. So that was genuinely really helpful. So thank you for that. Yeah, this weekend, don't forget Arc of Attrition, a bit more dot watching there. And of course, in a few weeks' time, the 2026 spine entries will be opening. So, it could be you. If you've enjoyed, the winter spine stories, and if you've thought, yes, I'd love to hop over some bogs and fall in them and fall over on some ice and, wedge myself waist deep in snow and put on multiple pairs of gloves and mitts trying to keep my hands from falling off. It could be you. I mean, what do you mean you'd rather pickle your toes? Come on, it's fun. Well, type 2-ish fun anyway. Some type 3, which admittedly isn't fun at all, of course, but there's personal growth, right? That's what you're after. Come on, you should enter. You'll love it in retrospect.